Thank you for joining the December 3rd, 2019 VOLTA call. Just a reminder to everyone that these meetings are public and recorded, and we do post them to our YouTube channel after the meeting concludes. So please be mindful of that during any discussions and presentations that we may have today. With that, let's go ahead and get started with today's agenda. We have a number of new JIRAs that have been open since our previous review. It looks like there are just a few of them that are not related to brigades, and I think some of these may actually need to get mapped into brigades. We'll take a look, and then we'll also take a brief look at all discussed JIRAs. We do have one flagged. I believe the bulk of that discussion will be scheduled for a later meeting, but I wanted to bring it up for visibility on today's call. And so that's the agenda for today. Do we have any other items that the group would like to bring up for today's discussion? Okay, let me go ahead and start looking at the new JIRAs that appear to possibly be not brigade related or not currently mapped in. First is 2295. Let me see if anything new showed up as well. Okay, actually, I think this one probably belongs in the stabilization brigade, but I wanted to check. Let me see if we've got David. I don't see David on the bridge yet. Okay, so this one is 2295.
Information on it, and that's probably the second thing I wanted.
Yeah, I believe it's belonged to the stabilization brigade.
That's what I thought as well. So let me go ahead and put it in there, and I'll map it over to the maintenance epic. Thank you, Ken. And then I think I also had another question here on, I'm supposed to be assigning a fixed target as well for everything. And we do want to have this handled in a nice fashion. Do we know where we want to place this? Should I map it to 2.2 as the target right now?
Yeah, I think it's 2.2. Pretty much once it's set of, there's a bunch of patch sets that are on the oral core. Once all those go in, then we'll just mark it as a version and move it out.
Perfect. Thank you, Ken. All right. Then, oops, let me get back to the next one. 2297 was the next one I had listed. Zach, this is one that you're working on. It is flagged for maintenance. I'm not sure if I don't think we have this type of issue mapped over to a brigade specifically, but we may. Does this belong in the stabilization brigade or just handled here on the non-brigade call?
So it crosses across a bunch of different things. This came up in the process of, we had developers who were using older and newer versions of Go, and they did things slightly differently in terms of ordering things in the mod file and that sort of stuff, which caused some noise in the CI process. This and the next one, the 2298, which you also have marked, basically there needs to be sort of a larger discussion about which versions of Go and the protobuf tool set and various other tools that we use, and like this also goes along with the Python upgrade stuff as well. How we're going to deal with those and their own independent tool set lifecycle as it relates to VOLTA, especially as we get closer to release. For example, if you look at Go has basically a 6-month cycle between each release, and then they support the current and the previous release of the software. So if we have people who are wanting to use VOLTA for a long period of time, they need to either be willing to update the Go version, or we need to have a release cycle that either matches or has some other way of dealing with or accepting that the version of the software that is being used to build VOLTA might be out of support by the upstream vendor of those tools. So I think these, in the short term, the tactical question that I'm asking in 2297 is, can we update this Go version? What's going to be all the fallout of that? Not just in the CI process, but probably also in the containers, the Docker from lines, and that sort of stuff. I have prepared a patch. There's a Garrett change that does the upgrade. It's very simple. It's just, that's in the CI system. But then we also have, I know Kent found some issues with some of the tooling that changed. The Golang CI changed some of the warnings that it throws because its version is upgraded along with this too. I guess the consensus generally from other developers that I've heard is that we should do the upgrade or update here and deal with those sorts of things. But I think we need to solve the larger question of that, which is a software lifecycle question. Are there any other comments in the community about this?
Just that, like updating Go in particular should be a really easy, painless process. It's all the tooling surrounding it that's giving us trouble. So is it possible to pin versions of tools to specific versions of Go and then have that separate? Like we don't need the tooling to use the same version of Go necessarily. I'm not sure if we want to discuss this here or if we want to take it offline.
Yeah, I think that this gets into the technical weeds pretty quickly. As Kent said, it's possible to support multiple versions, at least in CI. We currently, for some of the Java components, the ONOS apps, we have multiple versions of Java. We have JDK 8 and JDK 11 installed. So if we need to do something like that for Go and for some of the other tools, that would be possible. But I think we just need to have it stated that what we're going to do and what the process is going to be over the life cycle of the VOLTHA software release. And I can come up with a proposal for that if people would like, and then we can maybe discuss that at a future meeting. Would that be okay, Julie?
Yeah, that sounds good. So let me go ahead and 2298, I'll put an all discuss label on it to flag it, and then let me know when we're ready to bring that into a discussion with the group. And then for 2297, with the patch you've got out there, because the larger one is the more generic one, I guess, is 2298. So do we have agreement on 2297 for you to go ahead with this for 2.2? Do we need to have some further discussion?
I think that we probably need to discuss the 2298 issues and come up with a proposal and before then. I don't think this is going to be difficult to write. I think there are a couple options and they all seem cut and dry. So I'll if we could discuss that maybe on Thursday, I'd probably be ready by then.
That sounds good. Let me go ahead and put all discuss here as well, and I'll leave it without a fixed version for a couple days.
Okay.
Unless I get pushback from anyone. Okay, so we'll have that discussion then on Thursday. And speaking of Thursday, just a heads up for folks, we are hopefully going to be having a demo on Thursday as well. Let me see if Scott's on the bridge. Scott's here on the bridge. So the demo is coming out of your brigade. And so I don't know if you want to give a brief little intro for that. It'll be either this Thursday or next Thursday, but we're aiming for this Thursday.
Yeah, so we haven't confirmed which of the 2 Thursdays it'll be, but the demo is going to be an end-to-end demo of some optical measuring of the SFP devices in OLT. It'll go through the Redfish importer, through the Redfish exporter, and then to Prometheus. And I think Ganesh will be doing that demo.
That's right. Thank you, Scott. So again, either this week or next week, but we'll let you know once we have it firmed up on the agenda. So I may place it on the email I send out for Thursday's agenda as a tentative item, and then we'll also, Zach, target discussion on Thursday for 2297 and 98 with the material you prepare.
That sounds good.
All right. Okay, so then the next item is the all discussed JIRAs. And we go to the non-brigade dashboard. We have the 2 that I just added the flag to. And then the first one, 2294, Matt, I think you had added the all discussed flag here. I don't think we were necessarily going to have the deep dive discussion on today's call. We're going to try and target it, I think, for a future meeting. But Matt, do you want to give a brief comment here?
So I guess really this gets to, this is the first time I would say in maybe years that we're really looking at multicast in a lot of the components. And there's a design change that I think is going in that it looks like there's going to be a better approach to how some of this is done. But for many of us, this is something that's very new, and components within the core and OF agent and the adapters will have to change to support this. And I think an introduction to at least the design and the approach to this would be good for those of us who might not be as familiar with multicast and to some of the changes that might be needed in the core, specifically around flow decomposer, as this one brings up. You know, there have been times in the past where we try to work around issues by changing things in decomposer that might not should have been changed, and want to make sure we don't make the same mistakes again. So I think kind of getting an introduction to what the flows are going to look like coming down from ONOS and what the expected behavior is in decomposer for those flows on the way to the OLT and the ONU would help, especially for code reviews. We're looking at, in this case, code reviews coming in, and we really kind of haven't had a whole lot of background on what to expect. So really, it's just an introduction to what will start coming in for some of these changes.
Thanks, Matt. Any comments from anyone else on the bridge?
I concur with Matt on that one. We don't want to go back to 1.x where we're bypassing the flow decomposer in the core.
Yeah. So we'll work to get this slotted in for a discussion on one of the future meetings. Wanted to bring it up for visibility on today's call. And then we'll add it to the agenda when we have the right resources and material available for the discussion. Any other comments?
Yeah. Just a quick comment on, so is this for dynamic multicast or like just hard, fixed multicast? So basically you configure fixed flows, multicast flows all the time, or is this both? Or
yes, great question. I think that's kind of why we kind of need an introduction, mostly because different approaches and different ways of doing this might render itself differently in the code, and having to review code before we really know kind of where we're going with this, at least for some of us, might be a bit premature.
To answer Sean's question, so this is dynamic multicast. So the multicast channels are not hard coded. You just have to make sure that these multicast IPs do not have overlapping multicast MAC addresses, because BAL3.x as of today does not support filtering on multicast IP addresses in BAL3.1 at least. So just need to make sure these multicast IP addresses do not have overlapping MAC addresses, multicast MAC addresses.
Yeah, usually that's an operator kind of responsibility. So it's up to them to make sure there's no overlaps.
Yeah, and to address Ken and Matt's concern, there is an implementation or a design note already available on Google Docs. I can share the link, and if you need, I or someone from Netsia can do a walkthrough of the design implementation note, so that it could be useful for you for code reviews. But I'll share the link anyway, so you can go through it, and if need be, we can have a session.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Girish. Appreciate that. Okay, so are you going to share the link via this JIRA or just on VOLTHA Discuss?
I'll do both. That's fine.
Okay. Okay, and then once people have had a chance to take a look at that, people who aren't involved in the multicast brigade, then we'll try and see if we need to set up a dedicated session or just allow some time on one of the VOLTHA calls to the regularly scheduled ones to do some review and Q&A. Okay. Any other comments or questions on this topic? All right, and I think those are the only three that we have flagged for future discussions at this point. We have the first one we just spoke about, 2294 on multicast, and then we have the two related versioning and updates for tools and components, and we'll have some discussion on that topic on Thursday. So that's it for the agenda today. We had just a brief bit, but we do have, I think, a fair bit of material we'll have in the next couple of weeks with some demos, hopefully, and then some detailed design discussions. All right, any other topics from the group? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and give everyone some time back today, and then I'll go ahead and post the recording once that's available. Let me go ahead and stop the recording for today, and we'll adjourn today's meeting.